All right, this is going to be your next space. Going to be a great one. Stand by till the end. We're going to have a speakers panel all about the second coming of Bitcoin, the digital commodity, the fact that a lot of other cryptocurrencies are actually securities, according to Gary Gensler, the former SEC chair. And we're going to go break down all the reasons why and the goings on with all the freaking best, latest and greatest, and all the speakers in this panel that are going to break this whole thing down. The elements. It's not going to be one you're going to want to miss. Stay to the end. And if you're into anything about regulatory compliance, public blockchain, the long-term vision of Bitcoin, where this entire industry is going, and the Friday the 13th element, which is today, which I'm calling one of the scariest moments for crypto itself, for not realizing what they're getting themselves into, okay, by not looking at the compliance issues and the property rights that they may be stepping on, okay, without doing their homework first. So stay tuned to the end. We'll get started in a moment. Oh boy, there we go. Yeah, today's going to be the X space, all about the Bitcoin second coming, millions of transactions. Other cryptos are securities. It's going to be Bitcoin as a digital commodity, and crypto tokens are securities. We had a great post that Satoshi had shared with me from Gary Gensler about how all crypto tokens except for Bitcoin are securities. What a freaking concept. I mean, there's a lot of people in the space right now. I don't want to call anybody out, but let's just say that there's influencers. In fact, one of Brett, my friend Brett here, who had shared, is that he's calling he's saying that all these other blockchains can all scale and they're all fine and they can do all these great things. And then I responded back and I invited him on this space. Hopefully he shows up. I can't remember his name now, but I asked him, I said, well, are they stepping on anybody's property rights? I mean, because if he's making all these investment advices for all these other things, have they considered property rights at all? Have they considered that they might be securities? Have they considered any of these regulatory or legal compliance issues, or are they just saying, "Oh no, it can do all these great things. Don't worry about the legal stuff. That's Boomer. That's all Boomer. Boomer doesn't matter. We're decentralized. We're permissionless. We could do whatever we want over here. This is like the mantra of this new, I guess, this new digital age, digital commodities. They don't have to worry about compliance anymore, and so." I wanted to just kind of bring that up and see if we can get the conversation going. So looks like, okay. All right, Casey, I saw you were up here a moment ago. Let me add you back in. Kurt, how you doing, my man? Good to see you.
Hey, I'm doing well, Gavin. Good to be here. Happy Friday. It's indeed Friday the 13th. So, good luck to everyone.
Yeah. Were you a kid back in the day when they had that movie Friday the 13th coming out? Was that something
for sure. Yeah, you know what? I don't like scary movies either. I never did. So I've seen a couple bits and pieces of them, but I've never sat and watched. I mean, there's a bunch of them now, but it's not my genre. So I don't. I know the characters and the basic plot, and I've definitely seen bits and pieces, but certainly not something I'm going to be throwing on my own TV. I like to entertain with sci-fi or whatever if I'm going to watch anything at all. But that's even pretty rare. I have a TV in the house and it almost never turns on. So.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make a round here. We got our man Brett Banify up on stage. Brett, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing great. Excited for this one. And thanks for hosting the space, Gavin.
Yeah. Nice. Absolutely. Let me add Mila. Sent you a request to come up on stage. I'm going to put you as a speaker. And then I'm going to put, okay, there we go. So, all right. So, yeah, great to see you, buddy. And we got our man Satoshi. What's up, buddy?
Hey, how's it going? All good?
Oh, all good, my man. How you doing, my man? Great day. Couldn't be better.
Yeah. How does my microphone sound normal?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Well, mate, what was up with Kurt's microphone? Because he sounded weird as fuck just then.
Uh-oh. Yeah, am I bad? It could be. I'm still at the tail end of having like a cold and cough. It might just be that I sound bad, but how do I sound to everybody?
It It sounds okay. I mean, you sound auditable, so it's just not the Kurt studio radio voice inside the studio that we're used to. That's all.
I can attempt it. So I am just talking into my phone, which I've been told before makes me sound like I have a lisp. So I can. Weird.
It does. Mate,
So maybe...
well, if somebody created a clone of you and that clone turned out to be a homosexual, that's what you sound like.
Okay. Well, point taken. Let me see if I can mic up.
Nice. Yeah. So Alex Favell, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. How you doing?
How's it going, Gavin? Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. Thanks for jumping on the space. This is the Friday the 13th space. The millions of transactions, crypto tokens or securities. I mean, digital commodity. What's going on with you?
Same old, really. Just watching, observing things.
Nice.
And trying to help people when they ask for it. It's good to see your investment with Lament came through. Congratulations on that. Sounds like it's going to be an interesting project and business for sure. They've been around for so long that they're definitely going to succeed in something. And it looks like they found the right partners and niche.
Woo! Yep, absolutely. All right, let's go on over to Mila. You're up on stage with us too. I'm so happy to have you. How you doing?
Hey, everybody. I didn't get any, I just wanted to say that. I didn't get the whatever you're supposed to send me, so I just requested to speak to tell you.
Well, glad you're here. Stay up on the stage. Your insight is important. Agent 67. I love it. All right.
Hey, just popping in to retest my mic. How do I sound now?
So how's he sound?
Yeah, mate. You sound like a sex god now, mate.
Well, that's what I'm going for. So thank you.
Nice. I added one more speaker. I think Jacob. Is that right? Did you come up? Yeah, Jacob, you're up, buddy. Good morning. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. How about you guys?
Hey, doing good, doing really well. We got a space here today. It's about Bitcoin's second coming, millions of transactions, other cryptos or securities, and just kind of want to do a little Friday the 13th space. Were you a kid back in the day with Friday the 13th going on?
What do you like, the films?
The films.
No, I was just talking about this earlier. I actually thought Freddy versus Jason was a custody court case. But no, I didn't actually. I grew up with Nightmare on Elm Street, but my girlfriend really likes them, so we're about to watch them this month. So
nice. Time to go and binge watch the Friday the 13th. All right, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay, Casey Nicole, good. You're up on stage with us as well. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone.
Glad to have you.
Good afternoon.
All right, great. You're in and out.
Audio is gone.
Go ahead.
Seems like you might be back, Casey.
Nothing. Just looking for. Yeah, I'm having bad connection issues, but I'm here and happy and excited for this conversation. So
nice.
Thanks
awesome.
for having us, Gavin.
Let's do it. Okay. So let me just give you a background here on this space here. Satoshi and I were going back and forth about this space for a couple of weeks, and we were planning on doing this with Tokenovate, and we talked to Mr. Baker on Monday, and we were going to have him on. We were also going to have another gentleman on. There's a commodities trader, who's experts in the commodities and the I would say the commodities futures trading exchange. And so we met with them, and they decided that it was they wanted to kind of stay behind the scenes and not get involved in this space. So we're not going to say much about them other than they sent their best regards and wished everyone well and sent kind words. But they were going to be here, so they couldn't make it. But the bottom line is that really, I think this was Satoshi's research, his own. He's the one that really kind of came up with this stuff, and it seems like a lot of people have, including myself, a lot of it have yet to quite grasp it. But there was an old case in the 1930s called SEC versus Howey, and it talked about how like what the requirements are for securities. And there's it's an element I think that a lot of people are missing in the crypto space. Where in the crypto space, they're over here saying everything's great, it's permissionless, use our blockchain, it's going to be fine, we're going to make it in the long term. But then you got all these lawsuits going on with the SEC over securities violations and all this, just crazy litigation happening. And so, and then there's of course this patent, the intellectual property stuff, the property rights over these things that's just being ignored. So Satoshi, why don't we start with you, my man? I just wanted to see if you wanted to give us a few words.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just get right into the nitty gritty of this thing. So just to give everybody an idea of kind of like the size of financial markets that are out there, one of the questions that I posed to Craig in an attempt to draw out of him how big he was thinking and what Bitcoin and what he had actually designed Bitcoin for, without kind of just saying, what's the value of a coin going to be, blah, 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 blah. I was actually genuinely interested in the size of the market that he had in mind. It's just like, okay, what are you thinking? What can this thing do? And so I just simply said to him, I said, look, is the market that, Bitcoin that is going for, I said, is that global e-commerce that currently has a market cap of $29 trillion? And his answer to me was very simple. And he just said, no, that's too small. And immediately I was just like, right, he is going for everything, literally everything. Because in the future, let's say, for example, at the moment, you sell your property for like $300,000 or something like that. At the moment, you're trading that $300,000 for nothing. Fiat currency is just simply securities fraud. There's no value there whatsoever. They just simply print that shit from nothing. It's not backed by any reserve assets because, since Richard Nixon took it off the gold standard on the 15th of August, 1971. So when a true money comes along, a true money will take on the market capitalization of every single financial market that is currently measured in fiat currency. So you won't be selling your house for £300,000 worth of fiat currency. You'll be selling your house. You'll be selling your property like for like. You'll be selling $300,000 worth of property for $300,000 worth of Bitcoin. In an exchange. So then you can exchange that value for something else of equal value. And what was really interesting about speaking to the Tokenovate guys is that they are their product specifically, and again, every single product in the world needs to be tokenized, which is effectively securitized. So every retail good, every jacket, every bit of a clothing item, every bit of trainers, every camera, computers, mobile phones, they will all have a token that proves the sale and ownership of that item, in the form of a securitized token. But the largest market by far that absolutely dwarfs all the other markets is the derivatives market. That is estimated to be between $800 trillion and $1 quadrillion. And these derivatives are financial products. Individual financial products. So obviously a derivative is effectively a contract that is derived from a previously existing financial product, and that contract is executed depending on how well the initial financial product performs, that the contract is based upon. So all of these derivatives are required to be tokenized, and that is what Tokenovate is doing. I was blown away by it, honestly. So yeah, let's start with that.
Fascinating, dude. So that was your first exposure.
Wait, why are they required to be tokenized?
Because they're financial products. They're a financial product. You cannot afford to lose a financial product. So therefore, that financial product has to be on chain so that you can't lose it.
You can track it.
But we did pretty well since when did the Dutch come up with stocks? In the 15th century,
early 1600s. I just wanted to say that
we've done pretty well.
To your question, just real quick, the real question is why do we need derivatives of anything, right? And it's not really a need thing, but it is one of the cornerstones of global capitalism that, like, hey, if we can financialize assets, then we can create investment capital by, leveraging the existence of other physical assets, which is, arguable whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it has created a tremendous amount of wealth and technology over
And
the last.
liquidity.
Well, right. I mean, it creates liquidity where it wouldn't otherwise exist, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
The problem,
Jacob, please
and I argue, is there a limit to it being a good thing? I mean, we've seen, like, well, hey, we're gonna, bundle mortgages, and then we're gonna bundle bad mortgages, and then we're gonna create a bundle of the bundles of the bad mortgages, and now that's a new asset. So I mean, it can lead to problematic behavior, but
yeah, but it's going to lead to transparency of those products.
Yeah. Well, and that's what Bitcoin gives us, is if everything is done in a way that is globally auditable, as opposed to, I don't know, like Bear Stearns goes through a quarterly audit and they've got regulators in their office, so it's probably fine. But in reality, the people from Standard & Poor's are like, well, if we're the ones that downgrade them, maybe it's us that actually creates the financial crisis, because their books work at this credit rating but don't work at this credit rating. And if we just let it go into the yellow zone or the red zone on safety a little bit, they'll work their way back and everybody will be fine. But that's when it turns into corruption and opacity problems and whatever, and that's where Bitcoin and even the concept of, like, smart contracts generically can make these things better. But that's we're a lot of steps away from that at this point.
So
Kurt, but a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single footstep, and that's what
amen. Well, and that's I think why we're all here.
Let me ask a question over to Brett here, because Brett, you had actually invited on a speaker to the stage, and I don't remember his name, but he was an investment advisor. We don't have to share his name, but I don't know if he's here or not. But if he comes up, let's bring him up. And he was recommending that all these other blockchains. Well, what was he recommending? Because I asked him, I was like, are these all compliant? I mean, he's saying that all these other blockchains. What was his thesis?
Sure. Yeah, his name was Justin Bonds. And, he's one of those people where I invited him up on stage to present his ideas. In a way, it was a little bit, tongue in cheek, not because I was really necessarily intrigued by his conclusions, but because I think that that's how we have to have conversations, right? So, we can't just shun people and say, okay, mainly what his argument was for that, he had concluded that proof of work was the wrong way to go about the digital cash solution. And so he put a lot of time into this. Proof of stake is the solution. And it's like one of those things where, your neighbor and you may differ in your political, assessment. But it doesn't mean that you can't, we talked about this on one of our last calls, have a barbecue, talk about sports, connect around other ideas. And then it's when you can connect as people that you can really leverage the value that each other brings when it comes to these ideas that can sometimes be divisive. But, unfortunately, he was very thankful for the invitation. He didn't accept it. But I think that we really need to do a little bit more of this where, I think that the idea of proof of work is just misunderstood. And so part of why people dislike it is because of maybe how it's been applied in the past. Like if all you ever did was with a hammer was toss it through a shopkeeper's window, of course, hammers are going to get a bad reputation after a little while. So, it's only when you can do the work to show people how the tool is used to build as opposed to tear down that they can see what its value is.
Nice.
Well,
okay.
Hold on. Let's put this to bed right now. Right? Unless a system is economically competitive, there is no way for it to operate other than through it being centrally controlled. If a system is not competitive, there is no way to distribute tokens fairly. You're relying on a centrally controlled source dishing out tokens. you know, which obviously, you know, without competition, you get collusion and centralization. There is no other way to create economic competition other than through proof of work. That's it. So therefore, you cannot have a commoditized network unless it is economically competitive, which immediately strikes out proof of work. It is a security. That's it.
Proof of stake? Mean proof of stake.
Yeah,
you said proof of work, but we know what you meant.
Yeah. Proof of stake is absolutely a security, along with pre-mined, pre-mined, like, you know, XRP and Stellar and all that stuff, and Tron. It's not even distributed, let alone economically competitive. It's insane. Like somebody was saying, "Oh, what do you think about XRP? You know, they're saying it's decentralized, and it's peer to peer." And I was just like, well, if you're going to argue that XRP is peer to peer, you can argue that Facebook Messenger is peer to peer. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Right. Kurt, I mean, what are your thoughts on this here?
Yeah, no, I mean, he's absolutely right. And this is something that, this is actually why the cypherpunks all laughed at Satoshi. The first responses to Satoshi Nakamoto on the cryptography mailing list were, here's all the reasons why this doesn't work. And it's because they presumed that he made the same mistakes that the previous, 50 other, cryptocurrencies and stuff, like Bitcoin was not obviously novel when it came out. It was just
they ignored the math.
Well, they ignored it's just one more guy talking about digital cash. And like at the time there had been 50 others since the early 90s. That is when attempts at this started. And so to have some guy show up and say, I solved it, it's like, statistically, you are very likely to just laugh at that and be right that it's wrong, which is what most of the people did when they read about Bitcoin. But then you get the first few people that actually read through the white paper and actually considered the economics and was like, oh, okay, interesting. And so Satoshi's absolutely right in that you need a competitive model for reconciliation and distribution of tokens. And when it's competitive, truly competitive, only then can it truly be a commodity. Because when you start to insert the let's subsidize this behavior, and subsidizing behavior can be as simple as, hey, let's tweak the way this opcode performs, because that will subsidize a certain kind of behavior that we want to optimize for. So immediately you're having that conversation about the we. Who are the we that are desiring to optimize for certain outcomes? Because right there you've failed the Howey test to somebody that is being very objective about I believe that, in my opinion anyways, would break for the common enterprise, which is one of the key aspects of something being a security. Is if there is a we, then that's a common enterprise right there. You have breached the wall between commodity and security. And so, and that can be the core developers, that can be the nebulous, the Bitcoin community, but there is no truly decentralized version of we, because that we becomes a collective. The only way that something can be sufficiently decentralized is if there is no we. And I've said this a million times, that the most obvious commodity is gold, and nobody can change gold. It doesn't matter how much we love it or hate it, or how much we wish gold could do something that it cannot do. If you add something to gold to make it gold plus is not gold. Gold plus is a new asset, and it's probably a securitized asset, because you probably patent your formula, because you're trying to make gold plus do whatever it is that gold plus needs to do for your company. And so it's actually very simple. People confuse the hell out of it. Gary Gensler is, in my opinion, super corrupt on this. And really, we don't have an SEC that actually cares about reality. Everything is politics now. We have nothing but politics at every level of everything, and everybody wants to choose winners that look like the people that they want to win with, and everybody's just trying to climb the ladder of our unelected bureaucracy, and that turns into hyper corruption at every level. But in reality, these things are very simple.
Oh, I'll add a bit to that as well. So when Kurt was saying, like, you cannot have a we in a in a commodity, And that is precisely why Craig had to start the network himself. Because, and also someone had to create the Genesis block, and someone had to create that first wallet. Someone had to receive that first block reward. And also Craig couldn't afford to start the network with someone else, because that someone would have been the weak spot in literally potentially tearing down his entire life's work if they had let the cat out of the bag that they had started Bitcoin. Bitcoin had to grow organically without any central point of authority or control, neutrally and organically without any central point of influence. And this is why Craig had to do it himself, because he couldn't afford anybody else to let the cat out of the bag. And ultimately, all chains of signatures lead back to the Genesis block, which is where accountability lies. And you can't have accountability lying with a we. Accountability has to lie with a single entity. And that's Craig. That's why we know that Satoshi Nakamoto was always going to reveal his true identity at some time in the future. And that was planned or scheduled for the 1st of January 2020 when he got the Tulip Trust returned back to him.
Nice. Okay, Jacob, your hand's up, buddy. Go ahead.
Just a few things. So one, as far as proof of work goes, I'm a total 100% proof of work maximalist. I think that the first commodity to actually use proof of work in a sort of seismic $1 trillion industry way is not by ascribing or taking securities or commodities. It's going to be taking data and attaching proof of work to data, and that's where these ideas of computational energy markets all kind of stem from. So I think that data will be the first commodity that we will use proof of work, and not just Bitcoin type proof of work, but many proof of work puzzles like 21E8 and Daniel Kraiwitz's Boost Pow. And there are similar projects. And another thing about Satoshi that you said, which I disagree, which I kind of agree with, but I think that from what I've gleaned, it seemed as though, and this is my like total speculation, but I think based on what Credit, who is the fourth or fifth person after I think Marty Malmy on the Bitcoin network, he said there are only 3 nodes attached. So that's probably Craig, that's probably Dave, and then that's probably one of them trying to connect to Hal Finney. And connecting to Hal Finney is what makes Bitcoin decentralized. That was their goal. That's why the first block reward had such a high difficulty, is because they needed to buy time, 2 months worth of difficulty, which was solved in a week anyways, but they still connected to Hal. And connecting to Hal, is what made it decentralized, or at least decentralized enough such that 3 people who didn't really know each other could, peacefully fix up a code base which didn't even have an actual client. It was just scripts for the transactions and predicates and opcodes and all that. And so I'm just saying Hal Finney was a very important network participant, and kind of an essential ingredient. Like there had to be a third
Nice,
person
Jacob.
like
Got
that.
point taken. Let me go over to Alex. Thank you. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, Jacob, you just said something that the Genesis block had a difficulty a lot higher than the subsequent blocks, and it took 2 weeks to mine it. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it was supposed to take about like a month or two, but it was actually 6 days. And people like to say that Satoshi worked for 6 days and then rested on the 7th, and they do all the weird biblical Bitcoin is God shit.
Yeah.
But no, it was 6 days. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Okay. That's kind of interesting because I mean, obviously in Craig's case, I don't always want to go back to Craig, but Craig's case, he was like, yeah, we had a lot of computing power to set this network off. And if the Genesis block has a notably higher difficulty, well, then that's evidence of that, isn't it? But
Nice.
yeah.
Thank you, Alex. Let me go over to Kurt. On that, looks like Kurt, you're making comments. I see you making emojis. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it is fascinating that it's actually between the Genesis block and block. I always forget if it's Genesis is 0 or 1. This is actually
Genesis is 0.
Genesis is 0. So okay, so then
Genesis
block
sets the difficulty for block 1.
Gotcha. Okay, yes. So the interesting thing is that gap, and there's been a lot of discussion, lots of speculation about like, well, what was happening, what's going on there, and yeah, it's one of those things that is necessary for the thing to be a commodity. Again, it's there's not a reason why that block needed to have extra difficulty or anything else necessarily. Like Satoshi could have done things in any other way to issue the token like any other token, but it's just like, you know what? Hey, I just got to sit here and dig, and there is evidence that there is gold here, but I gotta find it, and that work that goes into finding it is what makes it something that is discovered as opposed to made. Because again, if you make it, it is much more likely to be a security than if you discover it. And so Satoshi, made the system. He made the all the rules that made it possible for it to be what it was, but he made it that he also had to participate in the work in order to make the system work, and therefore it's also relevant that he put out the white paper like 60 days before, 60 or 90 days. So what would it have been? It was October 31st to January. I believe it was January 9th for the Genesis block. And then so anyway, so there's like an announcement period, and then there's a certain amount of time to make sure that okay, there's been a sufficient announcement time for people to ready their shovels to participate in this thing. So it's all very, very carefully.
Hold on, Jacob.
Sorry.
Let me go to Satoshi next. Hold on, Jacob.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, that's good.
Yeah.
I want to go to Satoshi on that. That's right on with what you're talking about, bro. Go ahead.
Yeah. So in terms of the amount of time, the word in law, and this is lawful. The word in law is reasonable. A reasonable amount of time had to be provided, for any, and an opportunity, and an equal opportunity for anyone and everyone to start the network themselves. And a reasonable amount of time in law is considered 2 months. So that's why you've got 31st of October, because that was an added distraction. And then you start in the network. Well, you decided to create start the creation of the Genesis block on the 3rd of January, 2009. There was another point you were gonna make then. It's the token. The token has to be extracted, is the word, because commodities are only ever extracted or grown, because there can't be any human barrier to entry to anybody accessing it.
Is that the proof of work aspect, extraction?
Yeah.
You have to have sufficient proof of work in order to extract the hash that the reward is hiding behind. So it's essentially, this is why mining. That's why they call mining. You're trying to give an analogy that makes sense for. Hey, I actually had to do work to extract. I had to find it, and the finding it is guess and check, which is how when you're prospecting for gold, there are chemical processes for the soil. You're trying to pick like, okay, where is a good odds spot for me to dig based on the existence of various chemicals in the soil, and then you can say, oh, okay, I've got a better chance than not if these certain chemicals are available. And that's all just the process stuff that proof of work is simulating. And in proof of work, it's essentially just a guess and check, or for your computer science folks, it's like a brute force. So here's a table of random hashes, and you just guess and check one at a time. Is this the valid hash? Is this the valid hash? Is this the valid hash? And that's simulating that work that you'd be doing with soil, basically taking a scoop and checking, okay, does this have good chemical composition? Yes or no. If it's no, grab another scoop to like move another distance away, check this. And so that's what's happening digitally. That's why the mining analogy exists. And so it really is fascinating when you get into the thoughtfulness that went into it.
That's actually called the economic opportunity cost. The opportunity cost that was put in to extract it. That's what's required. Because you have to put investment in terms of either cost. Well, yeah, in a digital sense, because there's no physical effort there. In a digital sense, it's the economic opportunity cost put in to extract rewards back out.
Yeah. So let me just pose the question here. I mean, regarding, let's just play the other side. Let's say, you're supporting the gentleman that Brett had brought up regarding he's supporting proof of stake. He says that proof of stake is best and it's the way to go and it's legal and compliant. I mean, is there for an outsider, let's say they're hearing this for the first time and they're looking at all this stuff. I mean, can there be a supporting argument on that side that says, you know what, there's a possibility that proof of stake might be the best way to go?
No way. There's no argument for that at all. Unless you just want to speaking to somebody who's completely ignorant of economics. Well, there's just no way.
What would I mean? I guess maybe Brett. Like, what is? I think it's Justin. Like, what is his? He's a smart guy, right? He's an investor. He's running all. I mean, what is his? What does he see that, let's say, Satoshi's not seeing?
Well, I don't want to speak for him, but one of the things that I think everyone on the call is speaking towards is the concept of a level playing field. And once the level playing field is first of all, it needs to be initiated. It doesn't just, happen on its own, right? And that's part of what Satoshi is talking about by, the announcement. An announcement needs to be made. For example, if Satoshi never told anyone if Satoshi never told anyone about Bitcoin and just immediately started, launched the network, started mining it in secret. And then once it was all launched, he was like, hey guys, just to let you know, I put this new network together. And by the way, I now control all of the assets in it. That's not a level playing field. So it's about the formation and the initiation of the level playing field. But then once the playing field is level, there needs to be a set understanding in terms of how that remains, and it must remain level. And so part of what we have with the concept of proof of stake,
the word is common, mate. It has to remain, instead of using the word level, let's get it right. It's common. It has to remain common. Yeah.
Okay. Common, exactly. So if I just want to, I'm not as smart as Satoshi on this topic, but I want to use an example, and the example I'm going to use is a level pitch of a soccer field or a football field, depending on where you're from, right? Now imagine that every time I score a goal, now I have some jacks that are below the pitch, and I'm going to jack it up, based on how many goals I score, etc. Eventually, what happens is that pitch is not level anymore. The ball by itself rolls down in a certain way, and it's basically scoring goals on its own. And this is the concept of proof of stake, is that the more stake that I have, the more I'm able to level up, jack up my side of the pitch so that the ball naturally falls towards the way that I want that the ball to go. And of course, what happens is I end up scoring more goals and more goals and more goals until basically it's a vertical pitch. There's no one can operate on it. The ball can't even operate on it anymore. And that's the system that we're trying to escape from. If the concept of Bitcoin isn't that we take a system that's broken, that unfairly benefits the central agents that are inside the network, that are working from within the centralized financial partners, and then we're just going to remove them. We're going to do the exact same thing, except now we're the centralized financial partners. We're the ones that benefit from that, right? That's what a lot of these systems are trying to do. They don't have a problem with the fact that it's unfair, that it benefits the people that are in control, whether those be the core devs or whatever they be. They don't have a problem with that. What they have a problem with is the fact that they weren't in the middle of that network. Whereas what Bitcoin truly is designed to do, and what it is meant to do when you carry the torch forward, is that it completely eradicates that system, but not by decree. It doesn't say, okay, now we can no longer by decree have a centralized system. What Bitcoin says is, great. Yeah, you want to be a centralized system? Go on, run right next to us. Let's see who can be better at data auditability, data integrity, micropayments. Compete with us. And so that's where the real to me, that's where what Satoshi is talking about. When you carry these ideas to their logical conclusions, what you see is that Bitcoin comes in and it replaces that system by being a better facilitator of economic activity.
Nice.
Yeah. Also, with proof of stake, there is no economic opportunity cost in maintaining that stake. Because it's centrally controlled. There's no economic opportunity cost.
What about
the stake? That's the point.
What about the argument that, let's say I want to stake my coins on over there, and that's my opportunity cost, that I've got my coins staked over there and I'm getting a reward?
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. There's no ongoing opportunity cost. There's no continued cost. Once you've staked it, that's it. Yeah, there's no opportunity for anybody to compete fairly. So, and that's why it's a common opportunity for everybody that's required.
So let me draw up another analogy.
Please.
Like, this is proof of stake is different in that the thing that you are staking is based on work done previously, but you've already accumulated that thing that you are now staking. So it's kind of like the marble floors or the gold motif at your bank. Those are proof of that bank's stake. They have capital tied up in showing that they have wealth. Like, that's what they're displaying there, and it's very much illiquid. Like your marble floor at your bank headquarters doesn't matter in an economic sense. It's all just a display of wealth, previously earned. And it's not to say that doesn't have any value. And also, like, I think people use the word security like a dirty word in the blockchain space, and it's because most of the people are trying to issue assets and get people to think that they are not securities, because if they are deemed securities, they get into legal trouble. So it's a lot of people doing a lot of hand waving and writing novels about all the reasons they shouldn't go to jail. But in reality, again, this is all very simple, and securitized assets are a good thing. Like, they're not a negative, but it's very important that they exist on a layer that is not in some kind of common enterprise, because that's what makes it publicly available. It makes it that anybody can contribute. It makes it a truly neutral money, but also a neutral system that people can add non-neutral assets to. Like, this is how somebody can put their gold on that blockchain, or put their CBDC, or whatever other thing that you want to put on your chain. It's very important that the thing that it goes onto is actually neutral for all kinds of reasons. And if that's not the case, which is not the case with things like Ethereum and Tron, or any other thing that you want to talk about, because of the pre-mines or the dev tax or the investor pre-allocation of assets and these kind of things, like Solana, for example, I would argue is just a corporate. Like, it doesn't matter even now if there's 100 different entities that are validating and staking Solana, because at the outset there was a group of people who shook hands and had some kind of contract, either formal or informal, to issue this thing, which makes it a common enterprise. And so all that to say that proof of stake and these systems, they have certain value. They should just admit that that's the case. Like something like Solana can have a niche in the economy. It's just super dishonest for them to act like they are a fairly distributed, decentralized system, because they're not. They're very clearly a common enterprise. And that really should be the end of the conversation. Like, just admit reality. And this is part of my criticism of the blockchain economy in general, is it's just so deeply and egregiously and chronically dishonest. and the reason is because people are trying to just extract value. They're trying to extract it anonymously. They're trying to avoid taxes. They're trying to avoid whatever other malfeasances they're up to. All things which might, in and of themselves be noble, but again, like, at least among friends, like, just be honest about it. Like, hey guys, yeah, I've got, I really don't like all these things about the system. Like, this is some kind of a protest. Like, this is something that I actually respect about, your typical, your real anarchist activists, is at the very least, they're going to be like, look, I'm going to show up at this place. I am going to break a law that I think is unjust. I'm going to be arrested for it. And I'm going to explain to the world why I'm being arrested for this, for breaking this unjust law. Like, that is an act of protest, but to act like you're not protesting, it's just being dishonest. I didn't know, or oh no, here I've got this whole group of lawyers that's going to explain why I'm not the bad guy here. That's a whole. It just turns you into a bad guy by de facto. Like, do a protest, like, break the law and do it for the sake of trying to change the law, but at least explain that that's what you're doing, for everybody's sake.
How about this question here for everybody, and that is the fixed protocol, because it seems like, like when Satoshi and I had a meeting with Richard on Monday, and this was one of the big important things where he's saying, we're talking to like a lot of institutional people that are looking for like the next 30 years out. They're not looking for anything today or tomorrow. They're talking 30-year generationally because of these long-term bonds and whatnot. So are there any protocols that have a guaranteed fixed protocol that, like, let's say institutions or people that are in this for the long term can count on?
No, BSV is the only one that is even trying.
Well, right. And I just wanted to say, trying is the key aspect here. Like, it's about provenance over time. This is actually another really key thing about Bitcoin, is like, Satoshi, for example, had to deal with the fact that, hey, I need to basically be completely anonymous for 10 years because that's the statute of limitations on, whatever other legal hawk you could get put into by, lawyers basically trying to make you the issuer of a common asset. It's important for Satoshi to stay, completely personal identity away from the system for a decade, because during that time, Bitcoin, if unchanged, it builds up enough provenance for it to end up being a commodity, even if people were to successfully argue that aspects of it might not make it a commodity. And so that's another thing, is that the longer something goes unchanged, the more value that it accrues as something that is unchangeable, which has been another primary criticism of me and BTC, is that, I'm ready to admit, like, yeah, there is a, fork flags and stuff like that in the BSV code. Like, there are things that had to be done to BSV amid what was essentially a civil war. And during civil wars, we all have to do things that are, unsightly and undesirable, but they were done because the radical people that were basically in charge of the repo in Bitcoin Core basically wanted to treat it as a science project, which is why it's, every 18 months there's another major thing here. It was RBF, it was SegWit, it was hey, should it be Schnorr signatures that ultimately became the MAST proposal, and ultimately turned into a bunch of this other stuff that becomes the new modus operandi of BTC, and so now you've just got these changes, and this is my primary criticism in BTC, is not that whether or not their ideas are fundamentally good or bad. It's they are bad simply because they are changes. That should be the first rung that you have to go past, is that a hard money doesn't change, but the fact that you have a BIP process, you have a BIP editor or two. So these are people that decide what changes are allowed to be debated. And then there's a process by which they are merged. And if people decide, they make a de facto vote by the software version that they run, that they are now changing Bitcoin. Well, you're changing this thing that used to be Bitcoin, and you are mutating it into your new common enterprise that you're entering into sort of corporately, but probably not through a corporate entity, which is why some people do argue that running a Bitcoin Core node puts you into a de facto unlimited liability partnership, because you're running code that fundamentally changes something that is not supposed to be changed, which is then entering into that common enterprise. Now, a lot of this stuff, you're not going to have an interesting conversation with lots of people, because most people don't understand how property and law and the history of law work anyways. But if you get back into, get real, Blackstone, Old English law, like, going back 1,000 years, Magna Carta kind of stuff, and you start to learn the history of these things, and you realize that it's very important that when you sign a contract, that contract basically gets more enforceable and more valid over time. And it's funny because Satoshi actually points to this in the way that Bitcoin works. You can technically reorganize a block forever, right? You just have to have sufficient proof of work. So in order to say, hey, this is really, really important that we do something differently here, well, you have to redo the proof of work of everything that you've done after, meaning everything that you did after the mistake is also invalid, right? So if you want to go back 10 blocks and say, oh, shoot, there's an invalid transaction 10 blocks ago. Well, that's a ton of work to rewrite. So you have to make sure that it's very, very important that you do things right the first time. And if you have to go back and make a correction to your mistake, that it's an incredible threshold to break. But over time, you never achieve 100% perfection. Bitcoin isn't perfect. Your transaction isn't perfect. It doesn't matter if you spent a BTC in 2010. It's only ever going to add nines to your 99.99999x% of assurance that it is going to be a valid payment forever, right? You never get to 100%. And the reason you cannot get to 100% is because it's not about perfection. We cannot get there, but you are adding provenance over time. You're basically saying, well, I have 800,000 blocks built on top of it. That's a lot of provenance. But it's never all. It's never perfect. And that's the point. That's the point of the law. That's the point of all kinds of concepts that go into making things commodities or not. Like gold is the same thing. We don't know that gold absolutely doesn't rust and corrode. We just know that in the last 10,000 years of testing, it hasn't. So we have that much assurance that gold doesn't break down or rust or corrode, and that its properties don't change under pressure. 10,000 years of provenance is pretty damn good. It's really, really, really close to a guarantee. But ultimately it is also imperfect because we don't have a bigger lens. We don't have more history. We don't have a bigger scope to check.
Nice. Okay. I'm sending a couple invites out. I sent Ray, I sent Bridget, I sent Hooligan, Hector, and a couple. Who else? Alex, I sent you a request back up. I don't know whatever happened to Mila. She seems to have went away. But yeah, so who do we? Okay, one of the other subjects that we had here to talk about was this millions of transactions, and that was maybe Satoshi. Do you want to jump in on the millions of transactions? Idea concept. We talked about that on Monday a little bit in our meeting. So.
Yeah. Well, it's just Bitcoin is an economic model. You need the block fee to surpass the block reward in order for the miners to be able to continue to economically sustain themselves. And the block reward is just simply a way of distributing the tokens out fairly. But once they're all out, I mean, this is why the core guys literally cannot answer the question. Even Andreas Antonopoulos, they literally run a mile. You say to them, what happens in the year 2140 when the block reward is no longer there? And the answer he gave was like, oh, it doesn't matter what happens in 140 years. Well, yeah, it does. And it was just like, just what matters is today. And it's like, all right, so are you saying that this is like, the world's largest Ponzi scheme, and in 2140 the Ponzi scheme comes to an end? That's basically what he was saying. Yeah, it's absolutely outrageous. You need transaction volume on the network. You need utility on the network, and the largest market for utility, which is derivatives and swapping financial products, literally, is what was like the derivatives market, creating a platform that represents those financial products, and that's what Tokenovate are actually building. It's absolutely massive.
Cool that you had this awakening on Monday with it, man. That's really cool. So, Casey, Nicole, your hands up. Go ahead.
Thanks. I just wanted to know what you guys think about this upcoming State of Crypto address from Donald Trump. He's embracing the future of crypto and leaving the slow and outdated banks behind with the launch of World Liberty Financial. Do you understand what that is, Satoshi or Kurt or anybody? It just seems so weird launching that.
State of Crypto sounds like a company.
Yeah,
Eric,
I've only taken a glance at it, as was only announced this week, but it's just like anything else. Like, here's the thing: like, no matter how you feel about Donald Trump, and I'm ambivalent. I don't have a passionate thought about him one way or another. I think he's a person who exists, and I respect him for what he is capable of. But I'm not a fan of having a president in the first place. So don't get me started. But the problem with Donald is he's only got so much bandwidth, right? So even if he was a genuinely great person and the best person for the job in every regard and all these things, he can only be an expert in so many things. Now, as a leader, as an executive, like what he's asking to be as the CEO of the country again, he has to delegate a certain amount of things out. And so when he asks about, asks his experts like, hey guys, get me the skinny on crypto. This whole blockchain thing seems like it's hot. He's going to get information that is from the zeitgeist, right? And the zeitgeist is terrible. Like, our Overton window on what is good about blockchain is so far out of phase that it's nearly impossible that he would get good information from one of his advisors on what blockchain is, what it should do, what it could do, what it could do under the right leadership, etc. So, of course, basically, the fact that his idea looks like a 4-year-old Ethereum DeFi project at this point is not shocking. It is disappointing for sure, but nobody should be surprised that this is what it looks like.
Let's go over before we go to Crypto Spartacus and Jacob, let me go to Alex Favell. He's got his hand up, and Michael Scott's welcome to the stage. So Alex Favell, you're up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that on the Trump event, that's I think on the 16th of September, I believe it is effectively him buying votes, giving lip service to the crypto crowd so that they vote for him. That's what you should expect of the campaign in a political cycle. But as it comes to Trump actually getting elected, part of his transition team is the lawyer that attested to Tether's reserves. So I don't think that's a very good thing. But after that, he's also committed to set up the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOG. And Elon's heading that up, which is, hilarious. But the first mandate they've got is to remove fraud from payments within 6 months. They've got 6 months to come up with a plan to remove payment fraud, which he says is a trillion dollar a year problem for the US, which I agree with. But to me, that's kind of like setting up some sort of a corridor for whatever the crypto plan is. And to me, I believe that the crypto plan is a controlled demolition. To do a controlled demolition, you need insiders.
Nice.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that those insiders are friendly to BSV, but yeah, they seem to be constructing some sort of a complicated plan.
Nice. Okay, Jacob, I see your mic's open, so why don't you go ahead and you were up next.
So yeah, I'll be more brief this time around, but I think with Trump and Kamala, you know, I'm very zen about politics. I've always been not a centrist by any means, but you know, but I think that Trump actually, you know, is you know, like you know, this whole Peter Thiel sort of regime that has sort of replaced what was previously the Bannonites and all that. You know, I think they have these sort of vestigial resources of crypto, legitimate crypto experts and people that are on our side, who can really inform Trump's cabinet and his policy on crypto. Whereas Kamala, you know, I think anyone getting fooled by Kamala in crypto is either, you know, a Fed or like I don't know, like the biggest useful idiot
all
ever.
paid opposition.
Yeah.
I mean, it's embarrassing. I would be
No,
embarrassed.
it's so bad.
Like, you know, I really don't want
All
to
right.
get like, you know,
Thank you, Jacob.
Trump,
Point.
Kamala, politics, you know, yeah.
Well taken, my man.
The
Thank you.
president.
Kurt, did you want to
hasn't
chime in
been
before we go to
powerful
Crypto
since World War
Spartacus?
II. But you know, I think with crypto, I think really it goes back to what Kurt was saying with the Overton window shift, and the fact that there is 50 million Americans who hold the crypto, and probably half of them don't have a positive view of their holdings.
A lot of votes there, huh? Yeah, good point. Did you want to chime in, Kurt, before we go to Crypto Spartacus?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, Jacob's absolutely right. It's just such a scam. Like we haven't had a president since at least World War II, frankly. Like the unelected, faceless bureaucracy of millions of people that have lifetime careers in being bureaucrats is who actually runs the country. And then they are interfacing with the weird, you know, corporate fascist structure of lobbyists and big finance and big tech and all this stuff. So I mean, like, the president is such a figurehead role today, in almost every regard, that, you know, it's absurd. It's part of the reason why I don't vote, because really the only practical thing that a president can do is decide, you know, to declare war by proxy, by not declaring war and making it a, you know, executive order police action to just go kill people. And so I won't participate in that. But yeah, no, it's just really such a shame. Like the level of discourse in this country about almost anything is like really, really bad. And then about blockchain stuff is significantly worse because like the good ideas about blockchain are insulated already by a few layers of you know, influencers with shields that make sure the good ideas don't get out anywhere. And so it's just you know,
nice.
difficult to be an honest person in any of these arenas.
Honesty is suppression. Yeah. So,
but Kurt, this is the most important one of our lifetime.
Every election is less important than the last, and don't let anyone convince you otherwise.
Well, this crypto cycle is very important.
Okay, I'm gonna go to, let's see, crypto. Okay, first of all, Ray. I mean, I really would love to hear from Ray C. He's out in the audience. He's never been up on stage, and maybe he's busy right now. I don't think you guys know who he is, but I met him at the hackathon in San Francisco. I'm a couple guys. I know Kurt met him, and he's never come up before. We'd love to hear from him if he comes up. Crypto Spartacus, your hand's up, buddy. You're up, my man.
Yeah, just touching on the thing that Trump has said about embracing blockchain and crypto. I think he's really just giving people the heads up that that's what's going to happen. There's a lot that's going on behind the scenes that isn't being widely reported, where banks are kind of getting everything ready behind the scenes to transition to a blockchain system. And they kind of want to do it without public consultation or public intervention. So they're kind of quiet about what's being built behind the scenes, but there's this whole framework that's being built behind the scenes where, I mean, all these different banks in the last few years, the Federal Reserve next year, and I think it's March, is going to implement the ISO 20022 standard, which is going to allow traditional financial entities to pretty much interoperate seamlessly with certain blockchains. And that's all kind of being done behind the scenes where the public isn't really getting a say in that. And part of what they're doing next year with the introduction of that standard into the Federal Reserve System is they're going to allow people to pretty much deposit fiat and get a digital equivalent of that fiat that operates on a blockchain. And this is all kind of already, like, they've been working on that for like 9 or 10 years, implementing that standard. In Canada, we adopted that standard a year ago. It was last March 2023, I believe, when Canada adopted it. And really, the whole traditional financial system is just getting ready to move on to like the next big thing, which is going to be using blockchain. But they're all designing that behind the scenes where we're not really going to have much of a say in it. That's why it's reported on, but it's not something that's brought to the forefront of public discussion.
Nice. Okay, let me see who else. Who else do we have? Bitcoin asset, then hooligan, then two honesty. So Bitcoin or digital asset. I don't think we've heard from you. Go ahead.
Hi, Gavin. Thanks.
Yeah.
I wanted to get people's take on someone who's like super important, but has not been discussed that I've heard, and has a background in digital currencies, which is Elon Musk. He keeps talking about Doge, but does anybody really think he's really into Doge, or do they think he's being coy? I'll take it offline. Thanks.
So Elon Musk take on Doge. What is going on? I know I've heard some take on that. Does anybody have any comments on that?
It's a meme. Elon is a meme. Like that man understands like meme logic better than almost anybody alive. So he's playing on it because to him that's the proxy for what is crypto, right? And to me, that's actually a pretty wise look at it. I'm not a big Elon fan either, but he's very right in that Doge actually encapsulates the crypto ethos perfectly, in that it is mostly a joke. Its value is completely subjective, and the funniest thing about it is that it's funny, and that's the only part that actually matters. And that's crypto, and I say that as a bubble that is completely firewalled from Bitcoin conceptually, but Doge is peak crypto, and so he's wise in using that as his proxy analogy. It's very much how like I take all of small blocker anonymous trolls and I just call them Greg. Like I know they are not all Greg Maxwell, but they are all proxy Gregs. They worship at the altar of Greg, and so that's the proxy that I use. But I think Elon is very smart in using Doge as that proxy, and I don't think he's foolish enough to actually think that Doge matters any more than anything else.
Nice, good. Well taken, Kurt. Thank you for the question, digital asset fan. Okay, hooligan, you have your hand up next, and you're a business owner. I mean, does it matter about regulatory stuff and securities, and you're building a business on a blockchain? Is that something that you're concerned about? And floor is yours, man. How you doing?
Good. So I wanted to kind of talk about the presidential aspect of cryptocurrency, right? Because Donald Trump has retweeted Elon Musk's Doge meme for Department of Government Efficiency, right? He's doing something with this other platform that is going to be launching soon. That's like some sort of DeFi protocol, and Donald Trump, as well as Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has kind of joined forces with Trump. They're really talking about having the U.S. buy strategic BTC reserves and have that on the books of the government treasury. And to me, this is a huge risk to have a guy that's going to be, let's say he's got 50% chance of being president, right? Openly signaling, making an effort to buy BTC when it's very clear that almost nobody in government understands the implications of this technology. They don't understand the utility. They don't understand the potential, or at least they play it off very well that they have no idea. So it's a concern to me. I think Elon might seriously be thinking to do something with Doge, potentially with X. But if you look up in Elon's tweets and you look up block, you'll see that he's already signaled that Doge needs faster block times and bigger blocks. And that kind of sends me like a low-key signal that at least Elon knows what he's talking about in some capacity, that he understands for scalable technology you need bigger blocks. And yeah, I'm a little concerned with Trump and his potential administration, just what he thinks about blockchain. I think he's being really misled as far as what the real potential is here, because as we know, a lot of people that are in this space, BTC is built to brick. 7 transactions per second. It doesn't matter how many layers. If you want to have more layers than an Italian sub, that's nice and good, but I don't think it's going to benefit the taxpayer, and I don't think we opted into that. And there's just a lot of stuff that's happening. We're worried about debasement of the dollar. We're worried about them, using BTC as strategic reserves. At the same time, Russia's signaling that they want to allow Bitcoin mining in their country, which would be short pressure. So while we would be buying up coins, Russia's going to potentially be stacking them up. So I've got a lot of geopolitical concerns with that. I do think, as far as you asked, Gavin, about regulatory clarity for running a business, I mean, the IRS does provide some pretty clear guidance as far as like accepting coins. Like when you receive coins, that's a taxable event, right? When you transfer coins to some address that's not yours, that's also a taxable event. But we need solutions that really capture this. I mean, especially those of us that use micropayments, we use Bitcoin on a daily basis. It's very hard to capture that. And I think if we did, a lot of us in BSV would probably have some tax credits coming back to us. We'd have some deductions for sure. Because if you buy it 100 and you use it at 50, right, you're getting a discount there to your tax bill. But I think those are the type of solutions that we need, and that sort of consumer protection or regulatory clarity would really help push the adoption. I think people are really too scared to use a lot of cryptocurrency solutions because they just don't get it. They buy on Coinbase, they sit on a balance in their wallet, and they may sell it off. If there is a fork, right, Coinbase is the beneficiary of that. Everybody that was holding BTC during these forks, they didn't get BCH, they didn't get BSV. They essentially got ripped off, and I think the government should really be focused on understanding the technology before we're signaling buying it. So
nice. Well said. Well taken and well said. That was really good. So before we go over to Two Honesty, I definitely want to hear from you. I just want to make my motion to nominate Michael Scott for Trump's cabinet on an advisory role for this for this subject here. So Michael Scott, over to you, buddy. If you're available to talk.
Yeah, I'm just taking in, like I said, just got off a work call, but taking in the conversation. Not sure where it was headed prior to that. I'll just put in my 2 cents, and it looks like Two Honesty's got his hand up. But regarding Elon, he's part of the PayPal mafia, so he's going to be tightly aligned with Jack Dorsey, with that whole crew, and they don't care about crypto at all. I mean, with X payments, that's going to be a TradFi, play, as well as what is it, Cash App. So like my company, they use Cash App for like $1 million POs and stuff, and I was using Cash App this week for little stuff I was like buying and just random stuff, because it's just easy and everyone uses it. So point is, Jack Dorsey, I mean, that's his number one. So he's incentivized to see that thrive, and he's definitely not going to want to see crypto kind of creep in at all. So I'll step back, but definitely we'll chime in as I get a feel for what's going on.
Nice. Thank you, Michael. Awesome to have you. Okay. So first time to hear from Two Honesty Limited. It looks like digital asset recovery without keys. You're up, my man. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm calling from the UK and talking about Trump. Personally, I want him to win because it's going to be so entertaining. Yeah. Now, I'm not just saying that flippantly. I think I agree with Kurt on this one. It's not really going to make any difference who wins at all. And going back to the last question, the last speaker, does anybody know in government, actually know how taxation works? A much, much bigger problem than crypto. Yeah. So I'm not trying to discount this conversation at all. I'm just saying that's why I think it doesn't matter who wins. You know what I mean? There's going to be much bigger problems. Anyway, my real question was, before I heard everybody else talk, sorry for going on, was to Gavin, really. I saw a question from Dr. Wright to Gavin earlier, or a response to Gavin, on one of his tweets saying, I don't think it's really important that you love your enemy, sort of thing, or something like that. What do you say about that, Gavin?
Well, that's a really, that's a good, yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. I saw that I made a tweet and about, I love my, I love my haters because they're teaching me to love. I say, I love my haters are teaching me to love. There's something challenging. I said something along those lines and he made a really long post. And I mean, I'm still like kind of taking in what he said because it's so deep and so intellectual. I was like, I couldn't respond to that very fast, but I mean, I guess I could respond for the reason I believe I said that was because it's like I'm all about what I project. Now I can't control what other people do if they're going to hate and they're going to throw mud or what. I can't control that, but I can only control what I project. If I project love, if I project positivity, if I project good emotions, I can control that. So I'm just like bringing it back to like not a reactionary state and in more of an action. I'm taking action, not reacting. So I'll have to think about how to respond to that, to be honest, to honesty. So I don't have a.
That's all right. That's okay. I'm with you fully on that, by the way. I struggle immensely myself doing that. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for jumping on.
Could I just chime in on that?
Go ahead, Michael Scott.
I think it's admirable what you're doing. I will say, I'm typically of that mindset, but the people on X, I have over like 1,000 trolls blocked. Before I joined, or before I was active on X again, I actually pre-blocked. Like, I just did a search on like everyone who said negative things about either BSV or I just blocked all of them because they're like they're not reasonable. Like they're just malicious and they're just they're just like a pest. Like you can't deal with that. You literally have to just block them. So that's just my 2 cents. But I commend you for keeping an open line. So.
Thank you for putting me out there on the front lines. Speaking of somebody on the front lines, that's going to be Kurt, man. This guy is out there just taking a beating for all of us. So back to you, Kurt. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm very patient with my trolls, and then I have a bit of a cycle too where I will unblock people occasionally on a rotation, but I've kind of got a 3-strike rule. So there's a few of those guys that are just like they come back and immediately start in with like just deeply personal insult, and I'm like, okay, well, this was your chance to keep it about a real conversation. But when it comes from a place of like they simply hate you because you disagree about which distributed database asset is the best thing. That's some some deep psychopathy, or at least some kind of personality disorder that I don't want to have anything to do with. But
well, there's a principle in law. They teach this in I think into the high levels of law, and also I think in the insider groups. They say if your facts are strong, argue the facts. If your law is strong, argue the law. If you have absolutely no chance of winning, just talk bad about the other person's personally as much as you possibly can.
For sure.
And so it's a deeply rooted principle that is well taught And so it's important to identify it whenever we see it. Like, oh, okay, that's where we're going with this. No facts and no law.
Yeah. No, and it's really obvious, and it's the same few people. You know, there are small blockers who I disagree with deeply, who I have had debates with for years. In some cases, 5+ years, where we will have a factual disagreement, and we just simply disagree on various things. There's actually one guy who's contributed to Bitcoin Core, Larry Ruane or however he says it, but he's an American guy, and he's a hardline small blocker. But I mean, we probably haven't gone a week in 3 or 4 years where we don't bicker about something, but it's always about Bitcoin, or at the very least, sometimes he'll chime in and try to soften some terrible thing that one of his compatriots said, and I'm very happy to just let him know, like, well, like those kind of people are evil, and I'm not afraid to call them evil, but go ahead and defend them, I guess.
Nice. So who's Casey? I mean, please, guys, if your hands up, I see hands up, but I'm not sure if you guys have already spoken or not. So does anybody have their hand up currently, or are these all formerly? Hooligan, you're up.
Yeah. Kurt, I was wondering if you would be willing to answer kind of like DAR NAR node running mining type question that's
Sure.
kind of been coming up quite a lot.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I can, anyways.
Okay, so a lot of folks kind of say that we maybe have some protocol change because of NAR and DAR, and I know this is like really contentious. I don't know. I don't believe it's implemented yet, but from what I understand, it seems like it's some upgrade to the BSV node software that basically is a messaging system that auto executes, like say freezing a wallet or blacklisting it, or reverting a transaction, or not letting it get accepted as a transaction in the mempool. I mean, could you speak to that a little bit, and also,
Sure.
It seems like I spoke with, I won't say who, because I think he likes that I don't expose our DM conversations, but it seems like it's an API for mempool policy that has a way of issuing recovered coins for miners. So it's not actually a protocol change. It seems to be something that could be overlaid on any protocol level of Bitcoin. And so potentially, if BSV could get this sort of NAR and DAR legally accepted, or like as some sort of enforceable requirement in one jurisdiction that has reciprocity in other countries, essentially this NAR and DAR could be enforced across BTC or Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin Gold, right? All these different forks. Is that true? And also what I want to know is it possible to run an early version of the BSV node software that doesn't have this? So say your mining pool organization, if all of your miners wanted to run with it.
Let me just stick. That first question was so good, Hooligan, but save that second one, okay? That was super, super good, man. That was well taken. So, cool, Kurt. Go ahead and address the first question.
Yep. Well, and it's actually a lot of stuff to address. So I think one of the major things about NAR, network access rules, or DAR, digital asset recovery as concepts, is that they are conceptually possible on every blockchain, right? Like consensus is something that is just agreement between nodes. So if nodes agree that somebody's stolen coins or lost coins should be given back to them, that can be done right now on BTC or BCH or Ethereum. They just simply have to agree. They have to agree to update their ledgers such that coins go to where they say they go. The only limitation to that is coordination. Proof of work is a coordination mechanism. Bitcoin ultimately is a coordination system designed to do most coordination in a passive sense, right? But if you read into the white paper one step, the concept of an honest node implies the existence of a dishonest or malicious node, and therefore, unless we all believe that Satoshi thought computers were sentient circa 2018, which I don't think he did, and I don't think they were, that he's talking about people, right? So there are honest people and malicious people who may run Bitcoin nodes, and you determine their honesty based on their behavior. And their behavior is something that is public for everybody to see. That's what Bitcoin gives us, is a public attestation of people's behavior over time. Now, if node operators, let's just say it was 2009 and it was Hal and Dave and Craig, and they all accidentally burned all their coins, or, let's say Hal burned his coins. It was like, oh, shoot, I made a mistake. How difficult would it be for the three of them to coordinate giving Hal new private keys and reissuing him coins? Like, in a technical and a coordination sense, it is very easy. However, the problem that creates is at the time they're trying to give Bitcoin provenance, and therefore, if they were to make such a decision, I think they start to make themselves a common enterprise. We start to wade into, okay, is this system actually just a security again? Now, that becomes different if the system has provenance over time as doing different things. Now, here's another really good example. In 2013, Bitcoin Core issued a patch. It was a new version of Bitcoin Core. They recommended everybody upgrade, but anybody who didn't upgrade got forked off the network. And so for like half a day in 2013, there were two Bitcoin networks. And they were debating what to do, and it's on record because the debate largely happened in text. And Gavin Andreessen basically said, well, whichever one is the longest chain with the most proof of work is Bitcoin. End of story. Well, you had Peter Willa and Luke Jr. and a bunch of these other people that were like, no, we should just coordinate a rollback. Let's get I forget the name of the pool because they don't exist anymore, but there was two pools that basically controlled a very significant portion of the hash power on the network, and they basically made a couple of phone calls, and it took more than half a day because one of the guys who runs one of the pools was actually at the airport, if I recall. So he was like, well, I can't deal with it right now. But ultimately they rolled back Bitcoin, and they chose the shorter chain with less proof of work and called it Bitcoin for reasons that may have been valid, but ultimately it was a decision made among a couple of developers and a couple of pools, and all it took was a couple of phone calls to make that happen. Now, was that a good thing or a bad thing? That's a whole other question that we can litigate for hours in philosophy class or in the courtroom or whatever you want to do. But ultimately, what happened because they were able to very simply coordinate. And this was just 11-ish years ago that you were able to do such a coordination. Now, what would such a coordination look like on BTC today? Well, you have all these node operators, but ultimately most of them are in AWS. You know who the commercial ones are. It wouldn't be too hard to call Coinbase and Kraken and Binance and whatever else. You got the two major pools, which are Foundry and Antpool. So if you just kind of put everybody in a WhatsApp group and said, hey, we need to make a fix here. Somebody made a big boo-boo, and we need to do some kind of a rollback or whatever. It's really not that hard. It's just a line of code that says, hey, from this point forward, the coins that are over here are actually coins over here. We all agree. Anybody who disagrees is not in consensus with the network, and therefore isn't in consensus with the Bitcoin that is agreed upon among, the quote unquote, the people who matter. Now, the people who matter less will say they're the ones who matter more, and those are going to be your, the guys that are running their home nodes on their mom's boyfriend's computers. But ultimately, that's a social decision that needs to be made among people. And at the end of the day, we don't really know what the answer to that is, because it's not a binary answer. It is an opinion answer. Now, all of that is predicate information. What NAR or DAR or whatever, what this does conceptually is it creates a coordination mechanism. So instead of a WhatsApp chat among, your Coinbase people and your Kraken people and Foundry and, the quote unquote, the people who matter, what NAR and DAR does is it gives you a coordination mechanism that allows a message to come across the network saying that it has been decided among the people who matter. In this case, it is, various first world courts that say, hey, these people have gone sufficiently through a process to prove that these coins that they don't have access to, they do still have ownership of, and therefore they should be it should be agreed among the nodes on this network that those coins be returned. Now, Hooligan's absolutely right. It's an overlay. It's an API. This could very trivially be implemented, and I mean trivially as in within one day, it could be implemented on BTC, BCH, or any other Bitcoin-style blockchain, because it's just that. It literally is just a thing that passes a message along that alerts the active node operators, the honest node operators, and says, hey, it's been determined that ownership of these coins is not properly attested to on this ledger, and therefore we want to do that. Now, I'm not a huge fan of NAR and DAR conceptually for a couple of reasons, but most of them are PR or marketing related. It's a tool that is ultimately just going to bring up one more thing to bicker about, and have long, drawn-out edge case conversations, about what it's for and who's going to abuse it, and what about North Korea, and it's just like everything else. It's why instead of arguing about tax policy, we've been arguing about whether or not Haitians in Ohio are eating cats, and that's the level of conversation that we have in this country, and mostly in the Western Hemisphere, and it's because we're well fed. And have heat or air conditioning on demand in this part of the world, and so we debate about stupid things. And it's the same thing with NAR and DAR. NAR and DAR is just a tool that simplifies the process that could happen on any other blockchain, and in fact has happened on even the biggest proof of work blockchain that ever existed, because all it really is people making a coordination effort to make a change to a distributed ledger. And that's it. That's my answer.
Wow.
So as a follow-up to that, is it possible to run a previous version of the node that doesn't have the DAR and the NAR when that goes in place? And if, say, Gorilla Pool wins a block and isn't utilizing this, and say one of the one of the wallets that's supposed to be blacklisted and the transaction's supposed to not be accepted, if you win a block that has one of those transactions, now are all the other nodes kind of forced to accept that transaction? I mean, basically, are you able to win blocks with an earlier version of the node software on BSV blockchain, and then that has to be respected as finality, or could there be a reorg?
So the short answer is yes. You can run any version you want. You could be running a 2021 version of SV Node right now on the network, and it's totally like NAR has not been used. There has never been an instance of this tool being used on the network, and therefore there's no thing that would cause a split. Now, by design, Bitcoin splits if somebody breaks a rule, and a 2021 node would see a NAR-based transaction as a broken rule and therefore create a split in the network. You'd have two competing chains until somebody tapped out and decided that they don't want to compete again. But until that point, there are two competing chains that are basically begging for people to mine it and agree that this one is the real version of Bitcoin. That's the competitive aspect of consensus at play. And so it's just a game theory thing. It's kind of like the hash war in 2018. Like, which one is the real Bitcoin Cash? And then the reason we decided to basically quit is because it became apparent that you could not reorg Bitcoin Cash unless you were running the ABC software. So essentially, it came down to proof of Amori's latest version of Bitcoin ABC instead of proof of work. So it's a similar thing. I'm actually not positive what would happen in a reorg situation. So if the chain that was running the older version of SV Node had more proof of work, I presume that one would reorg the chain that had the NAR transaction in it if it had less proof of work. Problem that we have now is Tal. Everybody knows Tal is the largest miner on the network, and therefore, if Tal is running NAR, then that would just be the case. I should say also that Gorilla Pool is a US based corporation. And so if we were to receive an order that was domesticated into US court, like my company would have no grounds and no will to resist such an order. So it, unless it was, clearly some political thing, if it was like a human rights violation that was issuing the NAR order, like perhaps we would resist it. But that would be something that we as a company would decide whether to do or not to do based on us, making a business decision or a moral decision about that thing. But I also I think the threshold for such a transaction is actually so high. I've said it for about a year now, is that I don't think there's really a reason to bicker about it in public, because I think the threshold is so high that it will likely never happen. And that if it did happen, because that threshold is so high, it would be pretty bizarre to want to fight against it. Like, you'd be fighting against it simply out of a principle that doesn't really exist. So that's kind of my whole take on it.
Nice. Okay, awesome, dude. Thank you. And let me go over to Hector here next, but let me everybody please share this space, repost it, and follow your host, yours truly, so we get the word out there. Hector, you've been patiently waiting with your hand up, so the floor is yours, buddy. How you doing?
Good. Want to make first one clarification. The Trump administration did not say that they're looking to buy Bitcoin. They're looking to not sell the current amount they have in the government. But that's just the token that they're putting out there for the crypto people to say, hey, we're not going to dump on you if you vote for us. So, but there's no plan by them to continually buy. So that's a whole different idea.
Okay.
But yeah, what Kurt was saying, I think it's just like a misunderstanding of like the network, the idea of the network. People think it's this one like monolith thing of, oh, there's the network over there, let's all go look at the network. But in reality, what it really is, it's just a makeup and an averaging out over time of different computers, just to keep it simple. And so like when you go look at the network, you're more so looking at, in a point in time, one or a few computers or machines that said, oh, we think it's block 100, right? We're on block 100. And there's probably someone out there on the network who has a computer and a copy says, no, I'm on 101. You just haven't updated your side. So you're still on 100. And that person who saw it also thinks you're on 100. So that's what's going on. But it's like a very simplistic view. It's just an averages of what's really occurring. And that's what Bitcoin tries to be. It tries to be this distributed network rather than just one server, one computer that people look at and say, hey, is my Facebook post still up? Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you, Facebook. It's still there. But it's trying to do that same thing, but in a distributed manner. So, and if you, like, people are saying, oh, but it's like immutable, my keys, blah, blah, all this stuff they just blurt out, right? But if you really just think about it, like if I'm a miner, Kurt's a miner, and Gavin's a miner, and all the rest of you are just nodes on the network, just have a computer, a copy of what's going on. I say, hey, Kurt, there's a really, really fat block coming up, or there's a really, really fat block that Gavin just found, right? Or there's a bunch of transactions in there with really, really fat transactions, and we're probably going to get like a 50 Bitcoin block. You want to go halvesies if we find it, and if someone else finds it, just say I didn't see anything. So let's say Gavin found it, he relays it to us, and me and Kurt have more power on this network. We just say, oh, I didn't see it. Did you see it, Kurt? No, I didn't see it. Let's just keep going. And then Gavin's like, no, I have a block. Everyone look at me. I have a block. But me and Kurt are like, no, we didn't see anything, right? And that's the state of what's going on. And the reason this kind of doesn't really happen is because there's this fear that the collusion is going to hurt you in the end. But what you're really just seeing is, and that speaks to the idea of reorging and the idea of transactions getting placed out or removed and changed and updated in the future. Like if something did happen where we had to change a transaction, it's that simple, like Kurt's saying, having a group of people who matter and saying, I didn't see anything. Did you see anything? No, I didn't see anything. Oh yeah, you're right. Let's move on. Let's continue and go on. Because everyone else in the room has no ability to voice that something has changed. They go to Twitter, they go to Instagram, they go wherever, and they say, hey, they messed up on that block. Go get them. Because on the network, only Kurt, myself, and Gavin can actually say something. And we're going to resolve it through the network.
Nice. That's good. That's well taken, Hector. That was, so it sounds like what you're saying is that basically there's a the concept of having like a NAR or like a rule to follow allows us to go.
It's just a standard. It's just a standardization of the idea. Like if me, you, and Kurt were the network, all three of us, and we said, yeah, that transaction that Casey just made, I don't like it. Do you like it, Kurt? Kurt's like, I don't like it. And Gavin's like, I don't like it either. Okay, gone. It's now gone. And the people's gonna go search the blockchain. Wait, I just saw Casey's transaction. What happened to it? Oh, it's gone. We got rid of it. And there's nothing no one can do about it because we are all the computers that everyone asks, hey, where's these transactions? Like, oh yeah, we just got rid of Casey's. It's no longer there.
Dang.
And that's just how it goes.
Well, and that's why transaction fees exist. Also, it might be, I don't want to mine Casey's transaction for free. Neither does Hector, neither does Gavin. But for $5, maybe we'll reconsider it, or maybe we all still hate it. But maybe at $50, it starts to become like, okay, maybe I'll include this thing. But ultimately, Bitcoin and immutability and all this stuff, it's not, nobody has the right to force a miner to mine a transaction in a block either. You're literally just bidding for space at all times. And so it's a negotiation process in real time. Like Bitcoin is an experiment in perfect free market economics. But we are so imperfect as people, and so many people like worship the machine. That they're just like, oh man, Bitcoin's perfect. Bitcoin's immutable. Here's why I worship Bitcoin. And it's a very, it informs their entire opinion about Bitcoin very badly. And that's why there's so many bad opinions about Bitcoin. MicroStrategy looks like they just expanded their Bitcoin holdings. So they're pushing that narrative. We got, let's see, digital asset. I think your hand was up next. Is that from before, or did you have something new?
Then I was going to chime in.
Michael Scott. Well. Go ahead, bro. You're up.
Yeah. So just because this was a big topic a few months back, but I don't know if everyone saw, but so Craig actually responded to my direct question about the NAR and the DAR. I don't know if anyone saw that, but he said basically, quote, it's essential to my question about the NAR and the DAR. So clearly he's a fan of it. So that means, what he says goes.
What was your question? And then what was his response?
I said, what are your thoughts? I just said, what are your thoughts on the NAR or DAR? Right. And he said, it was a very short answer. He said essential. It was like a one-word answer. So the reason I asked is because back then when I was skeptical of the NAR and the DAR specifically, I was like, where is this coming from? Is this Craig? Like who which I, clearly it was. So that's why I kind of defer to him, right? I still have concerns because if you read, and I agree with what everyone's saying, and if you look at Ethereum, they had their own NAR DAR, right? That was like the biggest one ever. I mean, they forked a whole new chain, and that's why Ethereum Classics exists. That was literally like a NAR DAR situation with them, but a very sloppy one at that. So yeah, it standardizes the process as well as the consensus, but also it is a legal opt-in. And so the concern that I had was, right, if you look at blockchain versus banks, for example, the reason it should be cheaper is due to you're saving costs on the compliance and all of the hourly employees and everything else that a Bank of America would have, versus Bitcoin, which can basically just automate a lot of that stuff, right? With Bitcoin to make it a lot cheaper, if you allow it to scale. The problem is, from what I understand, and I don't know, hopefully it's more of a fallback kind of mechanism and more of a last resort, which I get at that point. If it's more of hey, we have to check a box to kind of remain compliant so to speak. I get that part of it. I was just thinking ahead in terms of, if you look at like it basically in the language, it says you have to follow like the European guidelines, because it's incorporated in Switzerland, and then there's basically the European standards.
Yeah, it's Swiss.
I
think it's Swiss. I think it's like a Swiss
Well,
arbitration
and
procedure.
But to what?
To that point,
go
go ahead. No, well, I just wanted to say, like, to your point, like, I agree. Again, I said I don't particularly like NAR and DAR as a PR thing. It's just that, like, it's not the right time to be talking about it, in my opinion.
Okay.
and the way that its messaging was done was like, here's this innovative new tool to move coins around in this novel new way. And it's like, well, it just really isn't the truth of it. Like, it's literally just, hey guys, we're tired of having a group chat on Telegram or WhatsApp. And by we, I mean, whoever it was in the Ethereum Foundation that did the rollback after the DAO hack, or, I don't know exactly where Peter Wella and Luke were talking to the miners that rolled back Bitcoin in 2013. But it's a freaking group chat that literally rolls back these things that, you have all these worshipers are saying is immutable. Like, this can't happen. It's like, no, it happens very trivially and has happened observably in the past. And you're getting rid of the group chat, and you're putting in actually a more difficult threshold than existed previously in doing such a thing. And so if that's explained well, I feel like it starts to make a lot more sense. But again, both timing and comms made it a bad idea, in my opinion. But fundamentally, it's not even a new idea. It's literally just a, like, hey, we're building a bridge between these two places where the emissaries meet. And they're going to meet anyways. They just do it by boat usually. And instead of the boat, there's a bridge. And, that's it. So,
yeah.
I would.
Michael, go ahead. Then I want to go back to Satoshi in a moment. So go ahead, Michael.
And I'm not trying to add FUD. People accuse me of this. I'm not. I'm just honestly looking at it. And so I agree. I agree with that part. My only concern is, and again, this is above my head in terms of how it kind of boils down, but basically within like normal banking and anti-money laundering and some of these other requirements, you have to literally, like, when there's blacklisted entities or countries, etc., like, you cannot touch them whatsoever, right? Or else you're now you're actually liable. Like, you could go to jail, right? Like a JP Morgan executive could go to jail if they do business with Iran, right? And so you're kind of you're volunteering now to adhere to that. That's literally what it's doing. And so you're gonna have to, like, blacklist Abdul, whatever, the wanted terrorist who's now in whatever country. And I don't know, like, how that adds to the compliance costs and, like, ability to for someone like Gorilla Pool to exist. So that's, again, not fun. I'm just,
it's definitely a good topic, but may go.
We'll hire whoever it is at HSBC that makes those deals happen with the Mexican cartels. We'll hire them to help us out.
Yeah, that's all we need. Yeah, we'll hire those guys.
I'll leave it there. So
that's right.
Yeah, well taken, Michael. And you're right. Like, part of that, like, that is my only actual concern is am I going to need to hire a team of lawyers at some point to deal with these kind of things? And I just don't think we will, because I think the threshold for all of that stuff is so high that if it ever got to that, it'll be such an obvious thing. Like, I'm not going to go, stand for some, human trafficker or something. And so, but again, I would, if it was a, like, hey, we're trying to censor, this political wrong think or whatever, like, that would be the kind of thing where I'd be like, oh, okay, like, I guess we are going to take a stand here. But I don't think it's that simple, and it's so much work. There'd be so much cost going into complying with the rules that are very plain to see, that I just don't see it being a problem. And if it becomes a problem, I'll deal with it then. But it's not. There's a non-zero chance that all of this happens right now in any other system also. So it's, like the Bitcoin space is in a like this weird la la land, and it always has been, really. Like these people say, like just anybody that says Bitcoin is immutable, or Bitcoin has never been stopped. Like you see these posts all the time. You get your like Pete Rizzos and stuff on Twitter who are just like, oh man, Bitcoin's never had a block reversed ever, and that's why it's awesome. And I'm like, well, I can think of 2 times when it has happened. What's your feedback? It's, oh, you're just a BSV troll. I'm like, well, you made a fact, or you made a post claiming something is a fact and it is untrue, very, very trivially and observably untrue. And so it's just like you don't get to say Bitcoin is immutable or Bitcoin can't be reversed. It's just false. It is 100% observable fallacy. And sorry. So in the real world, you can create mitigations for the risks that actually exist. Even if the risk hasn't been observed in 11 years on the network, it's still a risk, and you still need to have some kind of policy for how to deal with such a thing. So kind of is what it is.
All right.
Yeah,
nice.
Appreciate it. No, I like it. Yeah. And not to get too far ahead, and I agree. So I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Back to the millions of transactions. I mean, that's one of the things that we talked about on this space was, and I haven't heard from Satoshi in a while. So, this is like the peer-to-peer, creator economy that just seems to be lacking. Like the whole, hey, casual payments on the internet. And I get laughed at. I get my YouTube channel, people make comments, how stupid, casual payments. That's stupid. That's wrong. I mean, like that's like what gets me excited. For some reason, I think that's the most exciting thing about this technology. Maybe it's also the most disruptive as well. So, Satoshi, back to you, man. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. Just a quick recap. I've just been taking some notes here. So, just earlier in the conversation, when people are talking about the blockchain, Donald Trump and what's he going to say and all this kind of stuff. I mean, literally referring to Bitcoin, as being on the blockchain and all this kind of stuff. That again is another psyop. It's just not correct. Like, blockchain is just simply the process that But because people don't have a clue and suddenly the number seems to have gone up magically, and people just think, oh, it's the blockchain that's doing this. It's just ignorance, basically. So we clear that one up. I think we should probably start just referring to it as the network, because that's really all it is. That's what it is. It's a network of nodes. And Bitcoin itself, as Satoshi described it, is a chain of digital signatures. That's what the Bitcoin network is. It effectively creates a private association out of its users, because all the users are linked together by their chain, by their digital signatures, which gives them privacy on the network. And if you do want to stamp out bad actors that are child trafficking, gun running, drug dealing, all that kind of crap, then it's the private association of users that are responsible for stamping that behavior out and helping law enforcement track down who might be doing it through the chain of signatures. And going back to the NAR and DAR that we were talking about, the NAR is the network access rules, and the network access rules is just simply trying to explain to people or outline what the protocol is. But I mean, it blows my mind that no one in Bitcoin has done this. No one has outlined the protocol. And I suspect it's because nobody knows what it is. And I've outlined it loads of times. It's literally those 5 elements that I told you about. You need economic competition, chain of digital signatures, unbounded scale, fixed token supply, locked protocol. Those 4 things. That is literally it. And you cannot change any of those things. You can improve speed, cost, and scale, efficiencies and all that. But those main things I've just mentioned there, they are the network access rules. And it's a bit worrying that BSV association are sort of like, well, I mean, I don't know if they know it. I mean, I heard Conor Murray on it the other day, trying to using the metaphor of like a game of football, and I was just like, why don't you just explain what the protocol is? That's what the network access rules, and the protocol is what commoditizes data. That's why you can't change them, because the moment you change any of those fundamental elements of the protocol, you securitize the network and you make all the tokens on it economically worthless. That's the whole point of that. So the NAR is just real basic. And then the DAR, the Digital Asset Recovery System, well, that's absolutely essential if you want global international trade to be using this network, because nobody's going to risk, hundreds of billions of dollars being sent and then just simply being lost in cyberspace. It's just not going to happen. And again, the reason you need the digital asset recovery system is for those large amounts, because it would cost an absolute fortune for a small fish to try and recover their assets, because you would have to compensate the miners who would have to come to consensus and everything, and do what they need to do. But it's absolutely essential if you are a global international player, moving billions of dollars around, to have this digital asset recovery system. Because when you are dealing with transactions that size, you are obviously going to get government agencies trying to disrupt trade at that kind of level. You're going to get spies and bad actors, because the amounts that you're playing with are espionage. That's what I'm looking at. Government espionage at that kind of level of those transactions. So it's absolutely essential that you need digital asset recoveries on that.
Nice.
And yeah, there we go. That's my rambling over.
Alex is back up on stage with us. Hooligan, you had your hand up first, so why don't you go ahead and take the floor?
Mate, quickly, I'm going to have to shoot off. It's been great, so I'll love you and leave you guys.
Satoshi, thank you for joining us today, man, and all your wisdom and insight. We appreciate it.
All right. Have a good one. Catch you guys later.
Hooligan.
I just wanted to comment on something Satoshi said. I mean, yeah, like obviously, very large organizations with tremendous amounts of money are going to be resistant to embracing this technology if it could essentially be lost or stolen, and there has to be some sort of recourse for them to handle the mitigation of this risk financially. I think the problem becomes, who is the authority, right? Because the BSV Association is representing itself as, we have the authority from Satoshi. I mean, that's literally their charter, that they have the authority from Satoshi to be the stewards of the protocol. But Satoshi did not signal this anywhere. So it's a false premise of their charter to even operate like that. And if they're saying that it's Craig, there's no legal determination anywhere that Craig is Satoshi, that they could even represent that. So, it sounds like a legal attack vector. And so corporations would also assess the legal risk. And you've got a billionaire that's bankrolling that. I mean, independently, this billionaire is bankrolling it. I mean, Kurt's really the only competition to the hash power on the network. And a lot of people are connected to Calvin, right? So what is the what's to say the safety here? When you had the trucker donators in Canada, right? Like, they tried to freeze assets. If you have the government of Canada saying, hey, freeze all of these addresses because we can see they donated to this address, I mean, they could provide a legal court order, and I'm sure Canada could put all the legal pressure they needed in order to push this through, right? I mean, that's what the concern is who is the actual authority, and how are they operating through, what gives them that right? And that really breaks a fundamental principle of Bitcoin. I mean, it was removing the trusted third parties. That is a very crucial piece. We're white paper maxis here, aren't we? Right? We're removing the burdens of trusted third parties. And it just seems like we're introducing it back in. So it's a little bit of snip snap.
So
not really.
Oh.
All they're doing is literally safeguarding the protocol that cannot be changed, and it can't be altered, because data can only be commoditized one way, which means there will only be one digital commodity. That's
But
it.
game theory should be what's protecting the protocol, not a central authority saying, "Oh,
It's
we're
not
protecting
central.
the protocol.
It's not a
We're
central
enforcing
authority
that
at
all the
all.
node operators upgrade their software." That's the
Yeah,
issue.
but they're making sure that they stick to the protocol.
So
so so they don't
here's the
lose
thing.
value.
Game theory is about incentives among people, and the existing incentives among people have shown us clearly that the core devs can simply call a couple of miners and roll back Bitcoin. So that happened in 2013. Back in 2010, it was actually Satoshi Nakamoto did the same thing because somebody printed a poison block that had it was like 100 billion Bitcoins in it or something. And so that was very easy because it broke one of the major things. So everybody's, oh shoot, we need to roll this back, right? But the one in 2013 was much more. It was literally just it was a bug in the software, and so it was much more debatable which Bitcoin was the real Bitcoin. And so it's sort of like what I was saying before, like right now, if everybody's just running SB, let's say everybody's running a 2-year-old version